I have an e-bike. I got it a couple of years ago so that Jen and I could go on rides in the countryside at the weekend. And every now and then, somebody will tell me that it is not proper exercise to use one. And I've always thought two things when I hear that. Firstly, why is it that the people saying that often look like they're the people that think real exercise is driving to Pizza Hut rather than phoning your order through? And secondly, they're wrong. If you want to exercise hard on an e-bike, you can do. So here's what I did. I took my Moustache Samedy 27 Race 9 Carbon 2018 full suspension e-bike, pedal assist, no throttle, power only helps up to 15 miles per hour. And then my Trek Pro Caliber 29er Hardtail, light and fast, no motor, just me. I then hooked them up to my Garmin Edge 830 trip computer and my Garmin Vector 3 power meter pedals, and I went to the woods. So first up I went out on the trek and I did 3 short sections. Short sections because I didn't want to be getting tired towards the end and skewing the results in favour of stuff I'd done earlier on. So first up is ride 1. It is a short grassy climb up into the woods. It is only 0.26 kilometres long and only 25 metres of climbing, but it is exactly the reason I got an e-bike for in the first place. I plodded up it, hating every second, and these are the results. Time to get to the top, 1 minute 29 seconds at an average speed of 10.4 kilometers per hour and an average power output of 490 watts. And for the last third of the climb, I'm doing 7 kilometers per hour. I'm spinning away at 85 revolutions per minute, generating 500 watts. But any slower and I'm going to fall over. Any longer and I'm going to run out of steam. I can't pedal at 500 watts indefinitely. Is it good exercise? I don't care. Good exercise is not just about making something hard. If it was, I'd stick a 50-pound plate on my back and ride like that. It sucks. It is not fun at all. Now this section is a run out through the woods and back again, 2.5 kilometers. In the summer, this is a nice fast course that I love riding on really quickly. But today it was grim. It was wet and boggy and sliding all over the place. It wasn't very pleasant at all. Here are the figures. 8 minutes 51 seconds there and back at an average speed of 16.9 kilometers per hour, generating an average power output of 264 watts. And the mud slowed me right down. There were sections where I was doing maybe 6 or 7 kilometers per hour. In fact, at one point, for a fraction of a second, the Garmin went into auto pause mode because I have it set to do that at 5 kilometers per hour or less, so that it will shut down when I pull up at traffic lights on the road. So very, very slow in sections because of how grim the terrain was. In fact, the only good bit was then whizzing back down the hill to do section 3. Now section 3 is a farm road, but it is all tarmac. It runs for 2 kilometers. It is a steady climb up to the last quarter, and that's then gently downhill. The figures for this were 7 minutes 43 at 15.5 kilometers per hour average, 263 watts output. Now I start off on the flat section, my speed in the low 20s. This is what the Trek is good at. Those big 29-inch wheels, it rolls fast. But as soon as that hill kicks in, the pace drops dramatically. I went down almost to 5 kilometers per hour in sections. In fact, worrying about the auto pause kicking in was anything that kept me slightly above that. And I should add again, I'm not riding to kill myself on these sections. The idea here is that I am riding as though I am pushing on a weekend ride that is out for exercise, but exercise that is going to be in some way transferable to my training for my Ironman, which is effectively being able to cycle for a long period of time at a reasonably sensible level of effort. And so back to the car, swap the bikes over, swap the pedals over and out on the e-bike. And I had not got 20 yards from the car before I was thinking, this is better. Actually, this is a good point to explain why I have an e-bike in the first place. Jenna and I motorcycle and have motorcycled from mountains to deserts. And our training for that was done in part with BMW off-road skills course in Wales, run by Simon Pavey. Now, last time I was there, Simon said to me that I should have a go on his e-bike that he was mucking about on. Part of me wanted to say, yeah, maybe when I'm older. I'd never ridden an e-bike before, but as he's entered the Dakar Rally on his motorcycle 10 times, I thought, patronising him in that way would probably be silly, so I simply got on it and had a go, and within 5 seconds knew that I wanted one. That was it. I was sold. I came home, Jenna and I sold our Santa Cruz bikes, regular mountain bikes, and we both bought our e-bikes. We can ride further, we can ride longer, we can ride faster, we can carry the dogs. Nobody races ahead and leaves the other person behind, no one gets stuck going up hills. It is just a far more pleasurable experience to go out on the weekend using those than it was using the normal bikes. So, the e-bike on the hill, 53 seconds. That's versus the 129 for the regular bike. Average speed 17 kilometers per hour at 401 watts output. Now, interestingly, some details on that run is that for the first 25% of it, I was generating hardly any power at all. In fact, I was spinning up too fast looking for the right gear to be in. Once I actually got into the climb, the wattage settled at around 550 watts, which is actually not that different to the ride up the hill on the trek, except my speed never dropped below 13 kilometers per hour. It is not easy. I'm still pushing 500 odd watts going up that hill, but I'm getting some reward for that effort that I'm putting in. And then ride 2, out through the woods and back again. 6 minutes 34 versus 8:51 for the regular bike. That's over 2 minutes quicker. An average speed of 22.8 kilometers per hour. Power output 228 watts average. And interestingly, something that pulled that average power output down was that there were numerous points in the report where it's showing 0 wattage output at all. And the reason for that is that I would hit sections where I simply backed off pedaling because I was going too quick and I didn't want to literally ride into a tree. Had it been drier and I'd been a bit more confident, I could have kept the power on. The average power output would have therefore been somewhat higher. If you go to a downhill bike centre, it is not the most agile thing flying down the side of a mountain, but where it comes into its own is with momentum. When that thing, especially with me on it, hits a rut or a puddle or mud or a ditch or quite literally anything, it just plows straight through it. It doesn't drop any speed at all. It is like driving a car through a cardboard box. As a result, you don't lose any speed and have to start digging deep to get yourself out of those situations. You just plow right on through them. It means you're able to maintain a quite high average speed through some pretty uneven and gnarly terrain. And having said it's not agile going downhill, it's not, but as long as you point it in a straight line, it will still whiz down the side of anything. And so lastly, down to the road section, 4 minutes 55 versus 7:43 for the trek at a 24 kilometer per hour average, 253 watts. And interestingly, my heart rate monitor that had been playing up actually worked for both of the road sections. It showed 138 beats per minute average for the trek and 132 beats per minute average for the e-bike. So actually, those two runs on the road, pretty comparable in many ways, both in terms of output, heart rate. The only thing that was significantly different was that I was going much faster. What is interesting here as well is that I spent an awful lot of time at around the 25 kilometers per hour mark. It's about 15 miles per hour. That is where the pedal assist cuts out. At that point, it becomes a bit less fun to ride. It's quite hard to go much faster than that because it's a big, heavy bike, and without the assistance of the motor, you've got an awful lot of demand on your legs to go any quicker. So you tend to just sit and hold at that point. And those figures from the road course are actually probably more comparable to what I'd expect on a normal ride that I'd go out and do for a long duration of time. I tend to ride on bridleways, forest tracks and so on that don't tend to get too boggy, at least not for the majority of the course. I'm riding much quicker, I'm going over terrain that isn't tarmac for the most of it at least, but is certainly drier than what I was experiencing up in the woods today. So what that means is that disparity between having a similar level of output in terms of wattage and heart rate, but a big difference in terms of how fast I'm going, which I saw on the tarmac, but didn't see quite so clearly up in the wet woods, I would expect to see on a normal ride where I'd be riding on drier conditions. My bike is a UK legal e-bike. That means the power has to cut out at 15 miles per hour. You can keep pedaling as fast as you like, but the motor won't help you and the bike is a lump. It is at least twice the weight of my Trek. To pedal it fast with big chunky tyres, full suspension is just, well, you wouldn't do it. You'd simply get to that 15 mile an hour point and stop. Now here's something interesting. I did not run these tests with my e-bike chipped for two reasons. I thought firstly, showing you the results of something that you can do with an illegal modification seems to be largely pointless. And secondly, I thought that if I ran it chipped, I would have to back off too often because I'd be going too fast. And that backing off, that reduction in power, would mean that it would skew the results in favour of looking like e-bikes are poor exercise, and that wasn't what I was trying to show either. So I ran the bike fully legal. However, looking at the results, I realised that I wasn't actually getting close to the cutoff through the gnarly wood section, and I wasn't getting close to the cutoff going up the hill either. In fact, the only time I was getting close to the cutoff was on the tarmac section, where I wouldn't need to back off because visibility was clear. It's a long straight road, I can see what I'm doing. So I wonder. 4 minutes 8 chipped versus 4:55 normal. Doing 29 kilometers per hour, and it will happily cruise on the flat section at 35 kilometers per hour. And get this, 324 watts average. Why is the wattage so high? Here's why. When you're riding the e-bike and you bump into that cutoff point, you don't pedal faster. It is pointless. So all that happens is you stop pedaling as hard when the cutoff kicks in, the bike drops down a bit in speed, your pedaling comes back in again with some assistance, and you come back up to the cutoff, and then repeat. And so basically you're bumbling along at that 15 mile an hour, that 25 kilometer per hour limit, never really pushing that hard because there's no point in doing so. But with the chip, you keep pushing. Now, it cannot defy the laws of physics. You require an increasing amount of energy for an increasing amount of speed. So it gets up to about 35 kilometers per hour on the flat, and then tends to sit there. To go much faster than that, you would need an awful lot more power. But on a chunky, tired, suspension-laden e-bike, it feels like you are whizzing along, and it feels fun. In fact, it's literally the opposite of the hill climb on the trek, where you generate lots of power and the return is tiny, so it sucks. Here the reward is more speed, so you just play along. Clearly, I put in more effort. That 324 watts didn't come for free, but I didn't feel it. As an experience, it was just more enjoyable. So does that mean you should ride a chipped e-bike around the woods for fun? No, you probably shouldn't. Now, on the bit of tarmac I did that on, it was fine. I had visibility all around, there was no danger whatsoever. But prior to that, where I'd been cycling very slowly, I'd gone past dog walkers and horses and little old ladies out wandering around rambling. They don't expect, and nor should they expect, some idiot to come flying towards them at 30 miles an hour on a big tank of an e-bike. In summary, every one of my e-bike rides was faster and more fun than the comparable trek ride, even ignoring the last one when it was chipped. Interestingly, the wattage was down, but not massively, and when you compare it to a recent road bike I did, 60 kilometers out on the road for a couple of hours, 234 watts average. That's a bit of stop-start traffic, but even so, 132 average heart rate. Very comparable to some of the numbers I saw on the e-bike. My assumption never was that an e-bike was going to be as much effort to ride as a regular bike. My assumption was it would still be good for fitness. And this shows that is absolutely the case. If anybody suggests that simply more wattage from the trek means it is better exercise, is completely missing the point. If that theory had any weight to it whatsoever, then just tie a sack of potatoes to the back of your bike and drag that along. You'll generate loads of watts, and apparently it'll be marvellous exercise for you. The exercise has to be fun and enjoyable. What I'm trying to do here is replicate, to a certain extent, beneficial training that I would be doing otherwise in the garage here, sitting on the Wahoo for an hour versus going out and riding around the woods for an hour. I'm not trying to exhaust myself, I'm trying to get a good cardio workout. The numbers that the e-bike were giving me were good cardio sessions. And that is it. The next test is going to be a full hour with a decent gap in between, so I'm fresh for both. I'm going to go out, I'm going to ride both the bikes over the sort of terrain, the sort of ride I would do if I actually was replacing one of my Wahoo kicker bike rides with a ride outside. Trainer Road pops up and says an hour on the bike at 230, 240 watts, and I just can't be bothered to do another hour in the gym, in the garage. Don't want to go out on the road bike. I want to be able to jump on the e-bike, go out and use it and know that it's going to be fast, it's going to be fun, but I'm going to get a decent workout from it. versus using the Trek. The Trek is going to have to give me some numbers that are, well, remarkable, along with an awful lot of sense of satisfaction from riding it to make using the Trek over the e-bike the preferred choice. Based on this, I can't think why I'd take the Trek. It's going to be slower, it's going to be less fun. Yeah, I'm out. Interesting, hope so. Like and subscribe, more stuff to come. The only downside to either bikes is that I've got a ton of filthy gear to tidy up.